and welcome to My Brain is a Wonderland, the podcast for neurodivergent women and the people who love them. You're here with your host today, Emily, and I just wanted to thank everyone right off the bat for all of your support. I've been getting some more reviews on the podcast channels, on Google Podcasts, Apple, Spotify, and I just want to thank everyone out there for all the support. It really warms my heart and encourages me to keep going and doing this and sharing my story with all of you. Alright, so today I'm going to be starting just a little short new series, just 4 episodes, but the next 4 episodes are going to be based off of the book Unmasking Autism by Devon Price. I just want to say right off the bat, I have not read this book, actually. I've heard good things about it, but this isn't necessarily me recommending the book because I haven't read it. But what I actually did see when I was on Reddit, on a couple of different neurodivergent boards, is someone had posted the list of female autistic traits that I guess are usually a bit different to males. And they are in 4 different categories. We have emotional, psychological, behavioral, and social. So I'm going to take each of these 4 episodes, and I'm going to go through the traits in each section. This episode is going to be the emotional, and there are 6 traits, apparently, in the emotional section, and I'm just going to go through each one of those, talk about my experience, what I have experienced in each realm, and if I think they're accurate for me. And hopefully you gain some insight on what some female autistic traits are along the way, and can kind of relate to them, I'm guessing, if you are diagnosed with autism out there. I also think there will be some crossover with other neurodivergencies, particularly ADHD and maybe OCD. And so I hope you enjoy this first episode regarding Unmasking Autism by Dr. Devon Price, their list of female autistic traits. So let's get started. So the first trait under the emotional realm is strikes others as emotionally immature and sensitive. I'm not sure about the immature aspect. That is, it's definitely a trait of people who are neurodivergent and have autism, that it's hard to recognize your own emotions and maybe recognize how you seem and appear to people and who you actually are and how you present. I'm not sure if I come off as having immature emotions. I don't know if I do and I just mask it well. I'm really not sure about that one. But with regards to being sensitive, I am super sensitive. I always have been. My mom always would say that I can't take criticism at all, which is true. I struggle with criticism. I struggle with being confronted. I struggle with hearing things that I may perceive to be a really big slight, but actually it's just someone saying normal things. I don't know. I am very sensitive. I can get riled up pretty easily by other people if they're affecting me greatly, affecting my sensory input and just kind of my bubble. And I can get worked up about anything. If I've got a meeting coming up at work and I don't know what it is, or it's a review or something like that, I feel very sensitive about those things. I don't receive negative feedback well. It's something I've definitely worked on, and I don't show it anymore. I used to really show it in workplaces and things like that, which isn't good. Just in general, that's not a masking thing. Really being negative in the workplace in front of your manager, in case you're not sure, because a lot of people with autism don't understand rules of society. But that's not okay. People won't tolerate that whether you're neurodivergent or not, and it's really just unprofessional to express yourself negatively in front of your boss. So to be constantly complaining about your job or complaining about what you have to deal with or being angry about a coworker, definitely don't mention being angry with another manager. If you need to bring something up that is actually an ethical concern, then that needs to go to HR or something like that, you need to bring it to them calmly, and you need to bring it to them when you aren't as sensitive and you've kind of wound down. But I've always struggled with being sensitive. I remember playing, and if someone pulled something on me, I remember pushing on a door in high school. I was maybe 13, and I was pushing on a door, and the person on the other side was pushing on it. And it was just kind of a joke. I was trying to push open the door while they pushed on it, and then all of a sudden they let go of the door, and I went flying through the door and kind of across the floor. And that seems really dramatic. I don't think it was that dramatic, but I immediately burst into tears. And people came up to me and were like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. This was a joke. We thought you could take it. You seem so strong, da-da-da-da-da-da. That I seem like I've got it all together. But really, I can cry at the drop of a hat. The only time I haven't been able to do so was when I was on Lexapro. And if you go to my medication hesitation episode, a few episodes back, I talk about that. How Lexapro really dulled any kind of emotional feeling. I couldn't feel happy, I couldn't feel sad, I couldn't squeeze out any type of sad emotion. It was a bit scary. I started actually trying to engage with really sad videos on YouTube to try to cry, and there was nothing. And usually I would burst into tears pretty quickly if it was something to do with animals or someone dying, last words, things like that. And so definitely agree with, I'm super, super, super sensitive. Definitely not sure about being emotionally immature. All right, the next one is prone to outbursts or crying jags, sometimes over seemingly small things. So I don't know what the word jags is. If you know, I don't know if Dr. Price is from, Canada or Germany, or that they have a different word or a different area in America. I did look it up. It said something like a sharp occurrence or something. So I think it's crying, outburst, or crying kind of all of a sudden sharply. But yes, that is common for me. I did just mention that I burst into tears when I fell through that doorway. I don't know, maybe to a lot of people that seems like, oh, you should cry. But I really was quite grown, and it was just a joke, and I didn't hurt myself. I think it was just the shock of it. But that is the thing. If I experience something that I'm not expecting, if something comes out of nowhere, I can cry and kind of outburst emotionally pretty quickly and go from seemingly excited and happy and then kind of burst into tears from something very little. I've done that before when I distinctly remember, because this always used to stick with me, these things that I was like, that's weird. What's that about? Why do you do that? And this was before I was diagnosed. But I was wearing socks in London where I was growing up with my mom, and I was wearing nice warm cozy socks in the winter, and I went into the kitchen to get a snack or something or a drink. And I walked into the kitchen, and my mom had just washed the kitchen floor, and it was wet. And I went into the kitchen, stood on the floor, my socks got wet, my feet got wet. I immediately burst into tears. I was on my period at the time, and so I'd always explained that story, saying that, well, I was on my period and just burst into tears because I was so emotional. I now realize that actually it was a sensory thing. I really hate wet feet, wet hands. And that was actually a sensory thing. I still struggle with that if my socks get wet. And so I do generally have emotional outbursts. They can also be angry, which I don't like. I've tried to curb that, and I'm definitely not as bad as some people in my family, and I'm definitely not as bad as I used to be. But I can still go from 0 to 100 pretty quickly. And by that, I don't mean I'm not hitting anybody. I'm not even screaming or shouting. but I can be have quite a moody attitude really quickly. Like, I can snap at you pretty quick that you're like, oh, great, and then I'm like, you messed up, I'm mad at you, kind of thing, and be really difficult and emotional, and it may seem over something small. Like they're saying, it might be that it's like, why are you mad, or why are you crying, like, chill, kind of thing. So that's definitely something that I live with. The third one is has trouble recognizing or naming one's feelings. Absolutely, I've spoken about this before. I struggle and struggle with recognizing when I am depressed. I go up and down in being depressed and not being depressed. It comes and goes. And comes and goes can mean day by day, week by week, month by month, half a year by half a year. It really just depends where I'm at. But when I first got diagnosed, and if you don't know the story, go back to the first episode and listen to it. I talk about when and how I was diagnosed and how I hit rock bottom and got to that place. But I was depressed during the pandemic of 2020 for months. And I didn't realize at all during or even immediately after. I was very much displaying the signs of someone who is numb from depression, not crying and down all the time, just completely numb. Just laying in bed, not feeling anything, not happy, not sad, not finding joy in anything, just very numb. And I didn't realize until months later that that was actually depression. And that's always kind of how it is when I'm depressed and I hit rock bottom. When I hit that point where I'm like, okay, I'm not doing well at work, people are noticing, I'm snapping at family, I don't realize it at the time. And if someone even said to me, how are you feeling? At that time, or any time really, if you said to me, how are you feeling? If my husband said that, I don't think I'd know what to say. I'm thinking about it now. Because I just kind of asked it to myself in my head and said, how are you feeling right now? I'm feeling energized. I'm feeling a little bit anxious, and that's because I'm always a little bit anxious when I record my podcast. I'm just really passionate about it and conscious that people are listening to me. But I think I'm able to recognize those feelings because I've been doing the podcast for a while, and those feelings are always there when I do the podcast. I'm usually energized a little bit hopped up, but also a little bit anxious, which feeds into that kind of hopped up vibe. So this is something I've been able to recognize over time. It's not something, like generally day to day, if me and my husband went out to a new restaurant or went out somewhere, and if he said to me, how are you feeling? Or even if I was on my way to work, I don't know. I don't think I'd be able to really say how I'm feeling. Maybe going on the way to work, because usually a bit anxious going to work, and I'm usually a little bit... Okay, that's the only feeling I can think of. I'm a little bit anxious when I go to work. But, I don't know, that always seemed normal to me, that it's hard to identify the emotion that you're feeling. I guess it's not typical. And if you are, neurotypical listening to this because you know someone who's neurodivergent, I'd love to hear from you if you find identifying your emotions a lot easier, when you're happy, when you're sad, or faster. Because it takes me, honestly, months and a bunch of experiences with the same activity to really figure out what I was feeling. Was I anxious? Was I happy? Was I withdrawn, sad, depressed? I find it very, very difficult. Okay, the fourth one is ignores or suppresses emotions until they bubble up and explode. Yes, I was talking about this just last week with my mother-in-law. I might do an episode on it, but my husband and I and our 2 dogs did evacuate for Hurricane Idalia that hit Florida. I did my second or third episode when I first started this was about evacuating for Hurricane Ian that hit last year and was devastating. It was supposed to hit us as a Cat 5 and hit us actually didn't hit us, turned south a little bit right at the end and devastated a county below us. And so we didn't want to risk that it could turn and hit us, so we evacuated again. And, side story, sorry. But I was talking to my mother-in-law and just saying that I really suffer from a lot of anxiety and how it bubbled up a lot during this preparation for Hurricane Idalia. I was a mess the day before we decided to evacuate, and I think I will do an episode about it now. It's going to be a little out of date because I record these ahead, but I think I will. But was talking about my anxiety, and my mother-in-law said, "You don't seem anxious," which is the masking thing. I'm very good at just like, I'm very good at covering it up, but also it presents itself in ways that you may not expect. A lot of people expect anxiety to be like, I'm anxious, I'm worried. But actually my anxiety comes out in public as I'm angry at you, I'm short with you, I might be moody because I'm so tense. And I think people don't realize that that's my anxiety. But she said, how do you deal with that? Has it gotten worse? I think it has gotten worse as I've gotten older. And really the only thing I can think, there's definitely an aspect, I'm going to do an episode about my irritable bowel syndrome. It's connected to that for sure. They say your gut is your second brain, and you get a lot of influence on your mental state from your gut and what's going on down there. But I think really it's gotten worse because as you become an adult, you are dealing with a lot more stuff. When I first met my husband and when I first met my mother-in-law, I was an exchange student with free money from the government, no tuition. I didn't have to work at the time because I was in school. I did work my final year in college full time, but I was dealing with a lot less. College is really stressful, but right now I have a marriage, I have a house that we own, a mortgage. We're hitting 40, we're in our mid to late 30s. I'm worried about establishing a career where I'm not going to be laid off in 10 years and be unemployable. I am, we have an oak tree outside that may be going under our foundation and may need to be either cut down or mitigated or all these things. We have 2 dogs. I honestly worry about them dying every day. I just have way more to deal with. I'm in grad school right now. I have a full-time job. I'm in grad school. I have way more to deal with as a 30-something-year-old woman than I ever did as a 20-year-old woman, which is when I met my husband and my mother-in-law. So I absolutely think my anxiety's gotten worse for those reasons. But I was saying to my mother-in-law when I was talking about this, because she'd asked, is it getting worse? What's going on? And she said, you don't seem anxious. And I said, yeah, because I kind of push it down and, just keep it there. And she said, well, that's not good. And that's not really completely truthful. It comes out all the time, like I said. If I snap at you, if I seem stressed or moody, I'm anxious. It does come out. It comes out fully around my husband in that I will say to him, I'm anxious right now, while it's clear that I am anxious from the way I'm talking and acting and behaving. But I guess I do kind of push some emotions down, especially that may seem negative. Which is weird to say now because I'm saying I don't really recognize emotions as easily. Am I doing this unconsciously? That I know an emotion is not pleasurable, so I'm pushing it down until I kind of explode about it. I'm not really sure. It's one of those things about trying to recognize your emotions that's difficult. So I would say this is mostly true for me. The 5th one is may become disturbed or overwhelmed when others are upset, but uncertain how to respond or support them. Absolutely true. If you cry in front of me, I really don't know what to do. If you are someone I love, I'd probably put an arm around you and maybe hug you. Someone like my mom, my husband, my sister-in-law, my mother, like people who are close to me. If I'm in the office, I've had this before, and someone bursts into tears because something happened, I have one of 2 reactions. Either I stand there, completely dumbfounded, and don't know what to do at all, and just kind of go, like, there, so, I'm so sorry. Maybe offer a tissue, I don't know. The other one is like the really awkward, I mean, if you could catch this on film, you could put it in some terrible comedy, dramedy Succession show or something. But basically, I would go up to people and just like pat them on the shoulder. Very unemotional, very robotic, not really supporting anyone in any way. And I do get overwhelmed if other people are expressing sadness or anger, especially, which I think, I used to think it was because my mom used to get angry a lot, and I would kind of shut down because of that, and I think there is an element of that there, but I just don't like experiencing emotions. If my husband, for example, doesn't shout, he doesn't scream at me, but if he has a tone in his voice where he's upset with me, or is trying to communicate that, like, can we work on this? This is upsetting me. I completely shut down, and I just don't say anything. I become almost mute, and can't even drag anything out of my mouth. My brain shuts down. I'm not thinking of anything. And my husband will then get angry because he's saying, are you listening? You're not even responding to the things that I'm saying. And I actually can't in that moment. I'm so overwhelmed that I've just, like, my brain has just gone, nope, and bailed. It's really difficult because I need that reflection time to respond to things like that, but I didn't realize that when I was doing it in the past. It did seem to my husband that I was just not responding. If he was like, I really need this to improve, can you work on this? And then I'm just not responding, not talking, kind of mute and like looking at him. He's like, hello, are you listening? Like, what's this response? And then to me, I didn't know what that response was, so I couldn't react to it. I couldn't do anything about it because I had so much sensory input from him talking, and the lights and like what was happening and my own emotions, and my sock felt scritchy or whatever. There was so much always going on, and I just didn't realize that I was just shutting down because of that overwhelming stimulation. So that's really common for me, particularly in either when I'm being confronted about something negative, or if I'm in a place, like if I'm with my husband's family where there's like a lot of adults, a lot of kids, I might shut down in the middle and just stop talking. And people might think, oh, she's upset. I'm not upset. I've just shut down. And that's not even a negative thing. I've just kind of closed the gate for a minute, shut the window, shut the door, and I'm just laying on my bed in my brain, chilling for a hot tamale, like, leave me alone kind of thing. And that can sometimes come off like I'm being moody, even though I'm just not talking. So there can be lots of misinterpretations with that, which I regret. Definitely some stuff from the past where people seem to think I'm feeling some kind of way when I'm not. I mean, honestly, I don't know how I'm feeling most of the time, so if you do, please let me know. And the last one is goes blank and seems to shut down after prolonged socializing or when overstimulated. And this one kind of goes hand in hand with what I just said, because I was talking about how I didn't know how to respond and I would shut down and go blank. I mean, I literally just said, yes, I completely agree with this, I do this. Like I said, when I'm around my big family, my in-laws, I will shut down because I'm overstimulated from socializing. If someone approaches me negatively, I will do that. So I think if we go back and do a little check of 6 items under the emotional umbrella, I have checked them pretty much all, either completely, fully, or at least half, and said, yeah, I'm pretty sure I do that, or at least do half of that. So if this is a checklist, which it has check boxes next to it, if it's a checklist to check if you're autistic, check for emotional. So stay tuned for the second episode in this 4-episode series based off of Unmasking Autism by Dr. Devon Price, And this is basically the list of all the female autistic traits that they've identified. And the next episode is going to be psychological traits. So stay tuned for that. And follow me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I'm posting little short content on there, little extras. And if you want to stay in touch and kind of know what's going on with me day to day, because I do record these podcast episodes a few weeks out, then please follow me on the socials so we can stay in contact. If you'd like to reach out to me, I have a Gmail. All of this information is in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you. And I will see you again for the second episode in this series on My Brain is a Wonderland Season 2.